All right, there we go. Thank you for checking that for me. I think that's working. I hope that's working. Alright, great, thank you. Yeah, I don't know the answer to this puzzle, so I would say you guys didn't miss anything yet. The reason for that is probably that when my computer goes to sleep or something, the external mic disconnects. So I must have done that at some point and I didn't remember. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, I'm not sure about this. Right now I'm kind of on the idea that maybe I'm going to have to combine knight f4 and rook f2 or some other move on rook f2. Because I've kind of eliminated the simple things like knight f4 and then taking a pawn, or knight e2, or those things just don't seem to be working. Maybe I could play something like rook 8 to b3, queen a1, knight f4, rook a5, knight d3. But even in that case, they could play rook f1. So I'm just not convinced about that. If you guys have ideas, feel free to share them. I'm just really not sure. Knight h4 was something that comes to mind, but it just seems hopeful. Like knight h4, let's say they play something like rook a5, I don't know. Then knight takes f3, queen takes f3. Yeah, rook 8 to b3 makes sense. I was also considering something like rook takes f3, but I don't see how that's working because like rook 8 to b3, queen a1, rook takes f3, pawn takes f3. If I play queen takes f3, then there's queen takes b2, and then nothing happens. Actually, maybe that's not true. Maybe after queen takes b2, I have knight h4. Maybe that's a thing. This is a new way to look at it. Or knight f4, not necessarily knight h4. Rook takes f3. I don't know how queen g5 had done. I was thinking more like rook 8 to b3, queen a1, rook takes f3, and they're going to play queen takes b2. Because it looks like after pawn takes f3, I can safely play like knight f4. Because I'm threatening mate in some way. Like knight f4, maybe rook a5 at that point, queen g6 check. Looks like it wins the game. Triangle Cool Guy, welcome. Yeah, they have to move the queen, and I think they should put it on a1 to keep an eye on the rook. And they can't do anything. Like black is definitely in control here. We could probably force a draw if we wanted to, but I think we have to go for. Yeah, I'm gonna just play this one because I think this is how chess works. Here I could already take on f3. I didn't expect queen d6. I thought queen a1. Excuse me. Maybe they're trying to prevent knight f4 type stuff. So rook f3. If they play queen f6, we play rook f6. If they play pawn takes f3, then we have queen takes f3, threatening queen takes f2. They could play queen g3. So maybe not that. Yeah, but done. Queen g5 is hanging the queen. That's why I thought you meant something with queen g6. Maybe here we're throwing knight f4. Like knight f4 and then knight takes g2. That looks like something. Knight f4, I guess they'll play maybe rook d to e5. Something like that. Well, then knight d3 wins an exchange. So probably they would play rook a5, like in the other lines that I was thinking of. And then we have knight takes g2. If they take, we play queen f3 and win. That seems pretty convincing. I think we can just go for this. No, it's not that. It says that... Wait, what? It doesn't even give a move. Oh, it says rook takes f3. This was the other move we were talking about. And this is their main line. That doesn't make sense. It should be like, what happens if they take this? Because we don't have queen g5 stuff. Here I was thinking queen g3. Oh, but then this hangs the rook on d5. That's so obvious. Alright. This would have been my main choice if I noticed that the rook was hanging. Because here they have to play something like this, but then knight f4 is like clearly winning. That was kind of my original idea. Yeah, exactly. Triangle cool guy. I don't know how we are going to promote on the queen side. Like, we don't have a pawn over there. Maybe you meant like to win this d pawn and then promote the d pawn. But since they're already controlling d4 really well with this knight, it seems unlikely to me that that would be the idea. So that's why I was focusing more on like sacking on f3 to open their king. But this one was apparently a little bit difficult. No, I shouldn't even say that, because rook takes f3 was my main idea. I just missed that queen takes g3 is not a thing, which is not permissible for me. For you guys, you can do whatever you want. Okay, so what do we have? Looks like checkmate or bust here. Our knight's pinned. Their king's in a weird spot. Looks like something maybe just threatening mate like king f7, or maybe it's something with rook h4. King f7 looks like the most forcing move, so just quickly analyzing this. If they play a2, we play rook h4, we win. So they have to play king h6, only move. And they're trying to play king g5. But we could play rook g6, king h7. And now it'd be nice to drop back and play something like rook g3, but then rook takes f4 is check, so probably we should play like rook f6. But then I'm not sure what I'm really threatening. It's like we have the same position where our rook's on f6 and our king's on f7. And it's black to play. So let's say they play a2. Yeah, it doesn't seem so promising. We also have rook g7 type stuff here. Maybe. Yeah, I don't think this king is going to come over to stop the pawn. It's just too slow. Like, you might recall this square rule where if you draw a square that connects the pawn to the end of the board on the side where it's promoting, if the king can't get into that square on their move, the king cannot stop the pawn. So if white wanted to change directions and go stop this pawn, they'd probably have to do it with the knight or the rook. And we're not in a great position to do that. Like, if I try to unpin the knight, like play king g5, this knight is nowhere near a1, and that's where it needs to go to stop the pawn. And if I move the rook, like rook g3, then there's rook takes f4 check. And that's not happening. You know, I'd move my king, they'd play rook a4, and they should win. So I don't think we should even think about this pawn. I think it has to be some kind of checkmate puzzle. All right, take care, Vidon. Good luck with your prep. No, this is white to play. Black just played a3. This bottom right corner tells you whose move it is. It looks like... Okay, it moves to the top or the bottom, depending on whose move it is. So it'll be white in the bottom right or black in the top right. I didn't know either, so I just kind of figured because I saw the pawn move. It must be my turn. So I was thinking like rook h4 or king f7 or... That's really it. I don't think we have a lot of options here. King f7, king h6, rook g6, king h7. If I play rook g7, they're playing king h6 again. I'm not sure what that accomplished. If we play rook f6, they play a2, and I'm not sure what we can do next. So even this doesn't look so great. But maybe I'm being excessively judgmental. Maybe it's like king f7, king h6, rook h4, king g5, and then some cool move. But I don't see it. Like, we're losing a piece here. So probably not that. King f7, king h6, rook g6, king h7, rook g7, king h6. I don't know, it's like an awkward position to try to checkmate somebody with a knight and a rook. Ideally, it would be like their king's in the corner, and we have a knight on f6, and we play rook h7 or rook g8. But this doesn't look like that. The knight's pinned. It's probably going to stay pinned. And they're trying to run out to g5 with the king. It's not working. So maybe we should consider rook h4 more seriously. Rook h4, king g8. Even this, like, I don't see anything. Like, if I play king g6, I'm not threatening rook h8, so... I don't know. That's definitely a thought, triangle cool guy. If we try to checkmate them with just the king and the rook, the problem with that is it's too slow. Like, if I play king f7, king h6, we don't have rook h4 check because they have king g5. So we could maybe repeat the position by playing king f7, king h6, king f6. But then they go back to h7, and I feel like we should be winning because their king is not well placed. We have an extra knight for now. So I'm tempted not to just settle for the draw. Even if that was the answer, I'd be very dissatisfied if I took it without looking for more resources. So maybe rook g7 needs to be looked at. Rook g7, king h6. I think the only move that makes sense there is rook g6, because if we play like rook g8, then they have rook takes f4 check. So probably rook g6, king h7. But here I don't see a move. I don't see anything. Maybe this is the kind of thing where we have to play a slow move that's hard to find. Like maybe it's rook g7, king h6, and then king f5. No, sorry, that blunders the rook on g7. Yeah, I don't see any winning moves either. It's a hard situation here. Rook g7, king h6, rook g6, king h7. So now our rook is on g6, but it's the same situation. But this is such like a reduced position. It should be solvable. I don't really want to just guess a move here. Right now I cannot block. Right now I cannot move the knight because it's pinned. So it has a similar problem. It's just very slow. Conceptually, I'd like my knight on like f6, something like that. Let's see. Do I have an idea here? I might have an idea. Hold on. No, I was thinking something where I play like king e7 and then knight e6. Or maybe knight d5. But the problem is even if I could get my knight to f6, they could play rook takes f6 and then promote the pawn. Because as soon as I play a king move, they're playing a2. Unless it's king f7. Because king f7 actually threatens something. I think I have to start with king f7. I just don't see any move that makes more sense than this. Now here the question is, do I force a draw right now? Or do I find a better move? Like rook g6 comes to mind as... Like I could force a draw here if I want. Rook g6, king h7, rook g7, king h8, rook g8. And then we go back and forth. The king's just moving on the h-file. I really don't want to, though. But the reason I'm thinking draw is that if I play like rook h4, king g5, their king is getting out, and my pieces are all under attack. It doesn't look right. Like check, king g5, rook h5, king takes f4, and then nothing. That's it. It's not good. So rook g6, king h7 forces them back, so they can't play king g5 to get out. But then I don't know what my useful next move is. But since I don't have any other move that really makes sense, I think I could probably safely play rook g6 here. Like king f6 could also maybe force a draw. Like they'll play king h7 to avoid losing. But then it's the same position over again. So I think rook g6 is the only thing that makes a lot of sense. What is this? Alright, so king h6. Here it said king g8. Oh, this is an interesting pattern that I did not notice. This is a good move. If they play a2, then this is mate. Okay, so missed something kind of easy here. Maybe the way that I could have gotten this better is if I just played these moves, like king f7. Like, maybe I just played this one more quickly and then thought harder in this position instead of thinking hard back here. I don't know, maybe it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. Nico, welcome on Twitch. Yeah, look for winning moves before accepting a draw for sure. I looked for the winning moves. I didn't find king g8. That was a good one. So this is the pattern that I needed to remember. This one, where the king is on the edge and like only controls g7 and h7, but the knight and the rook are... This is actually a lot like the pattern that I said I wanted. Like, back here I was saying, I really wish I had my knight on f6. And the reason is that if they play something like king h8, or maybe king h6 if my king is on f7, then there's going to be some checkmate like rook g8, or rook on h7, or rook g6. It depends on where their king is. And so the solution for this one is actually kind of like that. It's just that the king is serving to cut the end of the board here. And then we have that same pattern where the knight is supporting the rook to come down here and finish them off. So I guess I'll remember this, that the king can sometimes make this knight and rook mate happen closer to the middle of the board. Thanks for following, Nico. Alright, let's move to a new puzzle. How did Andrea finish in that tournament? I don't remember. I didn't really look. Hopefully she did well, considering I donated a point for the cause. This one looks like I'm just winning a piece, but we're down a piece in the first place. I was thinking knight takes h3, rook takes h3, queen takes f2. And knight takes h3, if they play something else, we could probably play queen takes f2. Or knight takes f2, depends. This one looks kind of easy. Like, I don't see why I shouldn't take this free bishop and attack f2 a lot. Maybe knight takes h3 and they'll play something like f3. Yeah, good to hear that she did well. I think I should just take this and see. It says knight g2. That's ridiculous. I guess it has the idea that if they play f3, we play knight e3. And they... Okay, yeah, I guess this makes sense. So I had a hard time spotting this first move. Not doing well today so far. Okay, so here are knights hanging, but we're kind of promoting this pawn, and their king's unsafe. So maybe it's like queen c2. If they play king f3, we have knight e5, and that would solve some problems. But after queen c2, they'll probably play something more like king h3. It might also make sense to just question, why do I even care? Like, maybe I should just take this pawn on f5 and then keep playing. Instructions unclear. I could also play queen b2, king h3 or something, and then queen takes e5, because this pins the pawn. You know, if they play pawn takes g6, then we have queen takes h5. That looks pretty reasonable. Yeah, I think I'll go for that. Alright, this one says d2. Definitely wasn't high on my list of priorities, because I thought this was happening. And why is it not? I guess this comes with tempo. Is there not like a repetition here? Oh, okay. When I promote, it guards h5. The typical drawing pattern here is like check, and then check again, but it's not possible. So I guess here I should have focused more on the promotion. I thought it was just like, I'm going to promote anyway, so I may as well go win this pawn. Like, I'm taking on f5 with check. This seems super winning. But it's not engine approved. In fact, I wonder if there's even a draw here. I imagine this should be winning as well. Yeah, it says black's winning in the engine analysis. Okay. But still, nothing but blunders here so far today. At least compared to the engine recommendations. It'd be nice to be able to play bishop e5. So for that reason, I'm considering queen e2. Queen e2. If they play queen takes e2, we play bishop e5 and win. Oh no, we don't, because they can block, actually. I missed that. Queen e2, queen takes e2, bishop e5, then bishop f6 is not good. So maybe we should run the queen out of squares somehow. Like rook d2, knight takes d2 is probably not anything. It could be like bishop c1. That's a little bit odd looking, but that's fine. It's not a beauty contest. Bishop c1, queen e5 maybe. Could play f4. No, then there's some checks. Probably doesn't make sense. But queen e5 is the only move, I believe. So this is still kind of encouraging. For instance, if they play queen b1, we at least have bishop takes g5. So bishop c1, queen e5, and what? Queen takes e4. Yeah, queen takes e4 looks good. Because after queen takes e4, bishop b2 check, they no longer have the ability to block on f6. So I think this is it. Alright, finally I'm getting something right. Queen takes e4, and that's it, right? I don't think there's anything to say. Alright, finally got something right today. Okay, so we have forcing moves here. But our queen's hanging too. It would be cool to be able to play rook takes c8, queen takes c8, rook takes f7, but then they have knight takes b2. We're also in a bit of a pickle ourselves. Maybe it's something with knight g6, because that would fix a hanging piece problem. Could also be some kind of clever queen move here. Maybe throw in rook takes c8, queen takes c8, and then something. Like maybe queen d4. That doesn't seem so good. Because they could take the rook. Back rank's guarded, everything's fine. It could also be something like queen d4. But then again, I think they're playing knight takes f4. And it doesn't really matter how we exchange. No pieces are hanging. It could also be rook c d4, with the idea that if they take the rook on f4, we play rook takes d8. If they play like rook c1, we can play queen takes c1, and then rook takes d8. If they play queen takes d4, we play queen takes d4. And if they move their queen, we can take the knight. So they probably have to play knight takes b2, and then rook takes check, rook takes d8, and then rook takes f7, and we win an exchange. Hold on, is that true? Go here, take. No, not really. We're not winning an exchange here. Actually, queen d4. What was my problem with queen d4 again? I think it was just knight takes f4 was the problem. Yeah, so that's still an issue. Okay, so I don't really think these like rook d4, queen d4, these kinds of moves are working. Knight g6, pawn g6, rook h4, king g8. That also doesn't look super interesting. Rook f to d4? Yeah, that's a thought. Let's consider that. Rook f d4. I was hesitant to choose that one because they could play like we're not attacking the rook on f7 anymore. So rook f d4, knight takes b2 looks critical. Rook takes d8, and then I think it's a similar situation to the other rook on d4, because we end up with rook and knight against rook and knight. I think so. Yeah. In fact, we're losing a piece in that line because we don't get to capture the rook on f7. So still nothing here. Not working. Kind of grasping here. Like maybe rook takes f7, knight takes b2, and then something. I don't know, it just doesn't look too good. This could be a defensive puzzle though, because everything's hanging. Yeah. Maybe we do have to just settle for not losing a piece here. Like, we were thinking rook c d4, knight takes b2, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, rook takes f7, and then we have rook and knight against rook and knight. They are playing maybe knight takes a4, we're playing rook takes b7, the game goes on. Maybe that's all we can really ask for in a position like this. I'm going to try it, and it's okay if it's wrong. Just going to learn something here. Let's see. It says queen c3. Okay, I guess this works because if knight takes f4, then rook takes c8. But really, I didn't even see queen c3. It's a double attack. You know, they would... I would imagine that they do this. And I guess we have to do this so that we don't lose the piece. And we're threatening rook c8. And they should be able to stop that with rook f8. Maybe here we have to play rook d4 to win a piece. Okay, so this wasn't that obvious, I think. Because we have to find this move here. Okay, yeah, this is actually the computer's main line. I didn't notice that. Yeah, this was not that obvious. A little bit of a long line. And just one of several. Queen c3. Definitely the kind of position where I expect a tactic to be there, and I just didn't see it. Okay, how about this one? I want to play something like knight takes e2 and then win this queen. So maybe it's queen takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes e2, king somewhere, and then knight takes f4. Getting a lot of pieces, but at the end my rooks are hanging, so it's probably queen d5, knight d5, excuse me, knight e2, king b1, I guess, knight takes f4, and then knight c7. So how do I feel about that? I would have 3 minor pieces against 1, but I'm going to lose in exchange. That seems really good to me. I'm cool with that. Weird how that ended on white's move. Normally it ends on your own move. I thought they would play knight c7, but this also makes sense. We're just a piece up. Probably just to make things complicated, I would play something like knight c7. This seems a little easy for black to win. So this is another one of those promotion puzzles, and in the last one that had promotion, I didn't think about it hard enough, so I need to be careful about that. For instance, in this position, I could play something like rook d5 to try to promote the pawn, but I would not consider it first because it gives them opportunities like queen b4 or rook d1. It just seems like they're hanging on. But no matter what I do, I imagine that they have queen b4 check or queen a3 check. And if I was trying to give a checkmate on the h-file or something, that seems pretty far-fetched. Because they could always play like queen h3 to block it, but doesn't mean it's wrong. Anyway, just feeling it out here. One thing that would be cool would be if I could play queen takes f1 here. In like two forced moves, something like that. One thing that definitely doesn't work is queen e1, because they can take, and then the queen can take on e1. But it's sort of the right kind of idea, I think. Well, the pawn on d2 is going with check. So either I need to do something really forcing or protect this pawn. I don't think other moves make a lot of sense. I don't see anything super forcing, so I'm going to just go ahead and play rook d5. I was wrong. It was queen takes f4. Really? Guess we're a piece up. Okay. So I'm just not seeing anything today. Queen f4 is very logical. So far, so not good today. Knight h3 or something looks pretty good. Maybe something like knight e2 as well. Knight h3, I don't know. d5 also looks interesting. They would probably play queen f3, because if they play queen takes e5, we have rook a e8. And after something like queen d4, rook takes e1 should win the game. Because if they take back, there's queen g2. So after d5, queen f3 is the only move, I think. And then we have knight h3. That should be winning. It says knight h3 first, and d5 says it's like equal. This is queen e3 here. Okay. So I miss that they have more than one good move here. That's kind of lame. It doesn't make sense. So knight h3 was it. Definitely a move that I considered. Yeah, this is pretty simple. I was going for more. But I guess, yeah, I shouldn't disregard something like this. Not good today. Maybe queen f2 here. King g4. I don't know, rook g5 also looks pretty reasonable. Or queen d6 maybe. One of the nice things about queen d6 would be I could play queen d6, then queen g6, and rook h5, potentially. The issue I see with queen d6 is that after, for example, king g2, if I play queen g6, they have rook g3. but I think I see rook f2 check, winning a queen. Queen d6 looks winning. Alright, now here I think it should be queen h6. And that should transpose to the lines I just looked at. Rook h5 is probably also winning. But I kind of believe in this one. And then queen g6 here. With the idea of rook g3 and rook f2. Winning the queen. And queen against rook, this should win pretty routinely because we have this pass pawn. Alright, finally. What was that, like my 3rd out of 10 that I got right. That's okay. It's not always a great day solving puzzles. It's just good to be able to try. So maybe rook d1, but then they should at least be able to defend with rook c1, right? Yeah, I don't see anything spectacular after rook d1, rook c1. Maybe just like take rook c1, bishop takes c1, and then knight takes h6, just win a pawn. But we're down a pawn to begin with, so it doesn't look totally great. That's just, you know, keeping things unclear, not really winning. There's a difference. Maybe something with knight h6 immediately. If they play king g7, we could always go back to f5, although I'm not terribly convinced by that. King h7, we could maybe play rook d1 at that point, but even then, these just look like fancy ways to win the h-pawn. So there's probably something else here. Maybe deflecting this knight, because the knight is the only thing stopping knight e7, which would win the rook. Like, if I played rook e7 and they took it, that would be pretty convenient. I'd be a piece up after that. But in one move, they're playing rook c1 check. So maybe not. I was thinking like rook e5, rook c1, king e2. And probably they cannot guard all the pieces. Rook e5 looks like a double attack, sort of. Like I'm attacking e7 and chasing away this knight. Looks very reasonable. Alright, then I take it, and I win it. Good. Maybe catching a second wind here. Nothing wrong with the first wind, of course. Okay, so I could take that bishop in 2 different ways. But then I'm just losing this pass pawn that was otherwise quite strong. They have 3 minor pieces to 1. When I take 1 minor piece, they will have 1 extra. So I don't think it's necessarily great to take this piece on b7. It would be cool if I could play something like rook b7 here and just kind of mess up their whole thing. I don't think that's the case though. Maybe queen takes c8 or queen takes c8 and then promote. That looks a lot more promising. Because either way I'm taking this bishop, but in one I get to keep the piece that I get. And I must promote now, or forever hold my peace. Alright, I should probably take this. I don't have any other way to deal with this knight and this pawn anyway, may as well. Alright, cool. We got him. So now we've got a couple right in a row, that's nice. Jingo Ringo. Rook b7, yes, nice job. Rook b7 was kind of in the right avenue, but queen c8 was stronger. On the right track. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Maybe rook takes e2 type stuff. Like rook e2, king e2, bishop c4. If they take with the queen, we take with the rook. But I don't see why they can't play, for instance, king f3. Like, the rook is pinned, so it's probably not terribly unsafe on f3. Maybe it's like rook e2, king e2, queen a6. So that if they play... Well, first of all, like, it's nearly material equal at that point. I could probably get away with that just on positional grounds. Excuse me. And now if they play something like king f3, we could always play like bishop d5 or something similar. Or we could play king g8, trying to play rook to d3. I would like to have some other winning idea here, though, besides rook takes e2. Something maybe a little more convincing. In a real game, I usually take a lot less convincing, but when it's a tactics puzzle, I feel some obligation to find like a much bigger reward. If I had a dark square bishop, I'd probably feel more likely to entertain ideas like rook c4 or something to get at e1, but no such luck. I think the only move that really makes sense here is rook takes e2. There's also queen e8, potentially. Maybe. Rook takes e2, king takes e2, queen e8, king f1, bishop c4, king g1. And the checks run out, so that's not terribly convincing either. But even after queen takes a6, king e1, there's not a lot of checks. If I play king g8 in that position, they can probably get away with queen takes b3. Maybe rook e4 check there. Actually, maybe it's not safe. Rook takes e2 looks pretty good, but it also looks more strategic. What's my chess tempo rating? Good question. I have no idea. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry. I wasn't even paying attention to that. It'll probably pop up at the end of the puzzle or something. Let me just play it. I think this is good. Oh yeah, I mean, I have to play other moves too. Queen takes a6 I think was good. Alright, here it said bishop c4 check, which I also considered. Did not really see the difference so much. King f3, king g3. Here the engine's saying like top move is queen e4. But I don't know how I'm supposed to tell the difference between this position and the one that I wanted. Like, how am I supposed to tell that this is so remarkably different? Like, if I play queen e4 here and they take this, they lose. You can't play this. Like, even though they have two rooks, their king's just so unsafe. So, I think this is a bad puzzle. Not too great. What's my rating? Is this my rating? I don't know. I think it's a rating for the puzzle. Oh no, this is a rating for the puzzle. So right now it looks like I'm 1800, which doesn't sound very good. Queen f3 still runs into rook d3, I think. Okay, but I think what I gave was a solution for that puzzle, so I'm not too upset about it. I don't even know how to interpret a chess tempo rating. Like, does it really even mean anything? It's sort of like a meme on the notion of an actual rating. Although, of course, all ratings only mean something in the context of our agreement about what they mean. So here, if I just take this rook, they're playing knight takes f5. I could play like queen d4 maybe, but that seems a bit ridiculous. It might be sensible to throw in like queen a5. The idea of queen a5 is that we could deflect this knight. Like queen a5, knight b3, bishop takes. Oh, is that safe? Bishop takes b3, rook d8 check. But yeah, our queen covers d8, so we could do that. Bishop b3, and then if c takes b3, then we play pawn takes f5. So that's an idea. So queen a5 probably has to be met with something like b3, because if you play a3, I'm taking on a3. That should be winning. For instance, rook g5, pawn takes b2, king takes b2, queen a2. We're doing really well. King c1, queen a1, king d2, queen takes d4 check. Yeah, we're winning. It should be winning somehow. Maybe even earlier. So I think they have to play b3, queen a3, and then queen a5 and then b3. We could probably play rook takes c2 there. No, rook takes c2. After knight takes c2, they're threatening rook d8 in a serious way. We would play like pawn takes f5, but then after rook d2, rook g8 is illegal. We would lose the game. So queen a5, b3. I don't think bishop takes b3 makes sense because they have knight takes b3. And that's hitting the queen, so we can't take the rook at that point. Ringo here says that there's a formula to estimate FIDE based off of user-submitted stuff. Yeah, I could see that. You could derive some empirical relation between two metrics for sure. I just doubt that they really mean very much. They probably only mean something for the data that you use to generate the correlation. Anyway, ratings come and go. I don't really care. It's too bad that these back rank things are just like not happening. Another thing could be queen c4. So if they play b3, we play queen c3. That might be useful somehow. And the idea in that case might be like, so let's say queen c4, b3, queen c3, king b1. Idea is pawn takes f5, and if they play knight takes f5 threatening mate on g7, we can just play queen takes c2. So we can actually take the rook for free if we can get them to play b3. Queen c4, b3. So after queen c4, probably they would have to go for knight b3, and then we can just take the rook. Yeah, this seems right to me. We throw this check first, and now we take the rook. I'm pretty sure this is good. Okay, got it. Nice. Yeah, definitely not serious. But for some reason, people are often really interested in knowing, like, what is my rating? But I don't think rating's part of your identity. It's like, as soon as you know your rating, if you're an active player, it's going to change, like, a week later or something. Otherwise, if people didn't feel that way, there wouldn't be these empirical relations between different websites. I remember the first time I went to a chess club at a certain university, the Louisiana State University. I was just kind of casually talking to some people, and I mentioned that I use light chess, and like I didn't even ask, and they started going off about how like chess.com was first, chess.com is the real rating, light chess is inflated and all this stuff, and I was like, I didn't even ask you, I don't care. But it became like kind of a whole argument without my participation. So I try not to worry about things like that too much. It's just a small thing. I think when you're really working on chess, it doesn't even matter what other people think about it. So here there's a hanging piece, like this bishop's hanging. I think the idea for them is like I take it and then they promote their pawn, but it seems far-fetched. Maybe if I take with the bishop, they're playing rook takes d4. With the idea, if I play bishop takes d4, then they play d2, and I can't get in touch with the d1 square. Yeah, Ringo, you're absolutely right. All of the ratings tell you is who you can play next. That's pretty much it. And like reading into it is kind of like, I don't know, reading tea leaves, but even less interesting. And I don't know what it means for a rating to be inflated if it represents something just differently. Like, is Fahrenheit inflated relative to Celsius? Does that make it a worse measure of temperature? Probably not. One merit, though, of having different temperature scales, if we're talking about something that's real-ish, a nice thing about having a scale where, like, the smallest unit is relatively large is that you can it probably matches everyday things a little bit more easily. Like, some people say, why do the people in the US use inches? Like, why don't you use centimeters? Well, a centimeter is like this big, so a lot of real life objects that you interact with are not that big, but like an inch is probably like the size of your thumb knuckle. For me, it's probably smaller than my thumb knuckle, but you know, they're kind of like real life objects at that point, so they might have some more intuitive use, even though they're less economical in some other way. Like, okay, I know base 10 is very nice for the metric system, but the real world is closer to base 60, so maybe we shouldn't even be using things that are with 12, so maybe we should be using like a 60-inch ruler somehow. Anyway, thinking about measures and what they mean is kind of interesting, a little bit fun, as long as it doesn't turn into some kind of a degenerate argument. So what do we have here? I think if I play like knight takes d4, and they play rook takes d4, bishop takes d4, d2, I might genuinely be in some trouble. Like, I could play rook takes g7. If they play king h8, yeah, now I'm maybe happy, because I could play rook d7, take this with check, then move my bishop. But they would play king f8. And if I play like h6, let them make a queen h7, it just seems a little slow. They can start checking. But if I play bishop takes, rook takes, knight takes. If they play d2, maybe I could play like knight e6. Even that doesn't seem totally right. There probably is some kind of optimal rating system, but it would not be optimal in the sense that like it best corresponds to your level, because your level is always changing. Like, if you eat a bad breakfast, your level's gonna be different from if you ate a good breakfast. You know, there's kinds of influences like that. So a good metric is probably one that responds with a desirable quickness to your results, something like that. something that's precise but not more precise than you need it to be. I think a lot of people aren't even aware that there's like tenths of a rating point. It's just like they get truncated when they're reported to you, so it's not confusing. I think taking this bishop is really the main question. Just do I want to use the knight, or do I want to use the bishop? Or maybe it's like I take it and then I have to find some kind of intermediate move. Something like that. I sort of feel like, in general, I would want to just keep my bishop, as opposed to the knight. Thank you for following, Peter Baelish. On Twitch. And if you guys have an opinion about this puzzle, feel free to share. I'm kind of just mulling it over and checking out what you guys are saying. Knight g5 would be cool to get like some back rank mate memes, but I don't find that very likely at all. Excuse me. So let's just say knight takes d4, rook takes d4. Maybe I could play rook takes g7. And if king g7, then bishop takes d4 comes with check. And I could bring my bishop back and stop the promotion, but that allows some other kinds of counterplay, like knight takes b2. Same idea, just to deflect the bishop and promote. So probably after rook takes d4, I should just play bishop takes d4, allow d2, and then what happens? Rook g7, king f8, looks pretty obvious. Maybe it is just like I take king f8, h6, d1 queen, h7. I'm making a queen next move. What do you do? Maybe it is just like that. I didn't really want to allow something like knight e3 check or whatever, but our bishop seems to have it all under control. So I'm tempted to just go for this. All right, it doesn't ask me to complete. It's funny how, like, if I get it wrong, they'll be like, well, actually, you should have done all these things, and here's why. But then, if I get it right, they'll just kind of, like, not doubt me. Alright, so here's their main line, and this is exactly what I just said. But I was thinking bishop takes e3. So what's the deal? Why not bishop? Oh, because the rook's hanging, yeah. So it should be this. And they do get some checks, but they should run out. Then we play this. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, pretty tricky. Yeah, reasonable puzzles. There was one guy who was saying they're all too easy and stuff, but he also couldn't get them all right. So I think this problem set is worth doing. It's a solid mix of ones that I get right, ones that I get wrong, and then that third category, the ones that either I get right and they flag them wrong, or the ones where they say something's right and actually the solution was given by a weak engine and it's not correct. That happens, but you know, it's still fun and maybe useful to do them, so I don't care too much. Alright, so here we could take with the queen, or we could take with the pawn, and probably what they want to do is play queen e3. If I take with the queen and allow queen e3, I could get in rook d8. Bishop f8 would not be serving them. Probably we're just winning at that point. Like queen takes f6, and maybe just like stare at their face and see what they have. Queen c1, king f2, queen takes b2. No, queen b2 is not even possible. So yeah, so I think if queen takes f5, queen e3, rook d8, they can't play bishop f1, so they would probably consider something like king h8. I'm sorry, I was thinking king g7, not king h8. But then what? We don't have an extra move because they're playing queen f2 or queen g1. So this could be a defending puzzle, where it's like we have to just see that we should take with the pawn, so that when they play queen e3, we can play rook d8, maybe king g7, and then defend our back rank somehow. Or maybe we need to see that we're like keeping an eye on our bishop, so that we can play king g2, allow queen f2, play king h3, and then we're up a piece. That seems pretty winning. We don't have to see the actual win, we just have to like not blunder a piece and lose. So I'm going for this. Alright, and the idea was, oh no, I'm not giving that check because I need to keep, actually maybe, yeah, I don't want to allow queen g1, that's why we need to play king g2 here. Alright, got it. Nice. Yeah, definitely king g2, that's right. I think there's a little bit of latency, so I'm sorry if I'm answering you like absurdly late. I'm also kind of like switching and looking at the puzzle and then looking at the chat. This one's a rook endgame, potentially. Queen d5, rook d5, a2, rook a5, rook h1, doesn't work. Takes, a2, rook a5. Their d-pawn's pretty strong, so I don't think we can just like play this position. There should be some solution. At the same time, I really just like this position. Like maybe take and play rook f1. No, maybe not rook f1. Yeah, I think the delay is less on YouTube. I'm streaming to both right now. And I put different content on YouTube as well. So feel free to check it out there as well. But Twitch, I can't control my latency, I don't think. In fact, you'll find links for my other stuff, like my merch store and everything on YouTube. So the whole shebang is right there. Should be a winning position. Even if I just played something like queen g6, I imagine I should be winning. Although I wouldn't play queen g6 here. That's terribly passive. I could also just play a2 here. Allow queen e6, pawn e6. Because that would prevent the d-pawn from advancing at least. Because they still have to play rook a5 to meet the threat of rook h1. The thing is, I don't know if I can improve my position from there in that rook endgame. So could it be rook f1 directly? I don't think so. Because that's just a similar situation where I'm probably trading my a pawn for their f pawn. That's not winning. Rook h1 right now doesn't make sense either. Like rook h1, king h1, a2. If they take on e6, I'm justified because then I play a1 queen and take back. But rook h1, king h1, a2, queen takes e. Well, actually, maybe this works. Rook h1, king h1, a2. If they play rook c1 or rook a5, I'm playing queen takes d5, and that should win. So this gains a tempo compared to the position that I was imagining. Yeah, I guess rook h1 just wins. Pretty unusual. I like this tactic. Oh man, it was a2 after all. Why does rook h1 not work? So Hero is saying take this and then play rook h. Okay, I should have thought of this because these kinds of puzzles never have transpositions, and I was thinking, oh, it just transposes. They never have transpositions, because then there's no unique solution, and then the computer will not detect the puzzle. This is the position that I wanted. The one where I'm promoting in between and then taking back. So I saw this idea, and what's the matter with rook h1 straight away? It didn't even really consider it. I'm playing this. If they take, it's exactly the same position. If they play something like this, I'm taking the queen. And I'm just up, like piece up. Totally winning. Is there an in-between move here that makes sense? I really see nothing. They need to stop this. They need to stop the pawn. So let me just quickly check with the engine. I can't show you guys the engine. Oh, queen a8. Got it. That was stupid of me. Yeah, I can't show you guys the engine tab because it always opens a new page. Mukund, welcome. Actually, it's been a long time. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, queen e8 was the defense. That's right. I missed that move. So that was the difference between these different things. That's okay. That was a pretty easy puzzle to get wrong. Yeah, I don't like the new window either. But web developers do as web developers do. So my stuff's all under attack. That sucks. Queen d1 could be a thing. Maybe. Or bishop takes f2. Yeah, actually, bishop takes f2. I should be able to take the rook with check. Bishop f2, king f2, knight e4. That seems good. So bishop f2, maybe they'll play something different. If they play king f1, I'm playing queen d1, force them to take it, then play knight e4. So maybe bishop f2, king h2. Kind of tempting to just play knight takes e4. Like knight takes e4, pawn takes d6, bishop g3. King g1, I guess. But that looks a little far-fetched. Maybe I'd play knight c3 there, but then they have queen a8. Well, I don't see why I can't play bishop takes f2. Because if they have to play king h2, is it really that bad? We are a pawn down. We would recover our pawn by playing bishop f2, and then we should be able to win this e-pawn as well. Or something. Bishop f2, king h2. I could play like maybe knight takes e5. Knight takes, rook takes, queen takes, and that's check. So they can't play bishop f7 quickly. Could just be winning a pawn. Yeah, let me see. I thought king h2 was critical here. Let me go back and see. Did they even put this move? I don't know how they decide which moves to actually keep with the engine. Maybe it's like... Well, it definitely wouldn't be top, because then the most typical errors would all get missed, because they're all really low on the list. For this one, it says bishop g3. It also says knight takes e5. It also says rook takes e5. Okay. I guess everything's just winning here. Doesn't matter what my choice is. King h2 does look harder, but bishop g3 is snazzy for sure. Okay. Rook g5 could be there. Bishop f3 could be there. I'm sorry, bishop h3. Bishop g4 to play bishop f3 looks pretty good. Idea is pawn takes g4, rook takes h2, or queen takes h2. I don't really care. They should both win, although queen takes h2 wins right away. Yeah, I don't think they're even stopping us from playing bishop f3. So, in the interest of time, we'll just go. Yeah, f3 is a predictable defending move, but this should run into bishop h3, something like that. Like bishop takes, rook g5, something like that. Or maybe just bishop takes f3. Bishop f3, rook g5. If they play king f2, we have queen h2. If they play king h1, we have queen f3. And if they play rook g3, we can play queen. We could take it and play queen f1. Yeah, probably it's data from other players, but I don't think the moves that I'm guessing are so like bad that no one else would have guessed them, you know? But yeah, I imagine it's just scraped from the results of previous attempts. Have to agree, Mukund. Okay, so bishop's hanging. We have like rook a2 stuff. Pawn's hanging. Could be queen f2 at some point. Maybe queen f5 things. If I throw this rook a2 check, they don't have any back rank memes, so probably they would play king d3 or king c3 or king c1 or something like that. Well, actually not king d3, because queen takes f1 comes with check at that point. And not king c1 or king d1 for the same reason. So they have to play, so rook a2, king c3, like the only move. Maybe then we could take on d4 with check, so that when we take the bishop, we don't lose anything extra. Take with check. Alright, Jingo Rego, thanks for dropping in. Yeah, I'll see you around. If you're in the chat, I'll see you. And you can always comment anytime on YouTube for my old videos. I respond to any analysis questions about the examples that I showed, because I do lessons too, not just solving problems. So, see you around. I think if I'm gonna take this bishop, I want to do it in style. So probably rook a2 is the most reasonable way to do that. If I just take it, they're gonna take on c5, and these connected pass pawns are probably compensation. So I imagine this is the most reasonable move. Okay, somehow it says that only queen takes f1. This one. Wait, hold on. It says that this is better for white. Am I not interpreting this right? It says plus 2.76. Isn't that like in white's favor? Maybe I'm just not following the evaluations. This is a really derpy variation. What's wrong with this? They better have some fantastic reason that I'm not playing this. I thought this was the critical move. Like, they can take this. I don't care. Their rook is well positioned to support their advancing pawn, but I still am not really sure I believe it. Like, check. I don't know. I just feel like the game goes on and on. Maybe queen takes f1 is simple, though. Let's see. This is their main line. But they're playing king c3. I thought that this was important. Okay, I'm going here, I guess. White looks even better here, to me. Alright, just gonna quickly check this with their engine thing. Go stockfish. Alright, so rook a2. I think I'm confused about how they show their evaluations, because they switch the color and the sign of them every time I move. That's annoying. Alright, it says that every move is losing except queen a1. If I'm understanding this right. This is obnoxious. Okay, so actually they're winning a piece. Even this, I'd probably look at this and be like, you sure? Because these pawns are quite strong. Definitely a hard puzzle, because we're taking the bishop for free either way. That's the solution. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I really like this puzzle. Gaius, welcome. Queen a3, I think, is forcing a draw. Oh, queen a6 after taking the bishop. Yeah, maybe that's like a simple way to look at it. Like d4, we take, we go here, and then like queen a6, something like that, huh? This, I thought, sorry, would be like they're just pushing these pawns. Like maybe I'd start with this one because it's supported by the rook. It just doesn't feel like black is playing for a win. Like somehow they think that black is like crushing here. Just does not feel that crushing. The only thing that shows it is that I can check here. You can only protect your rook on either c3 or d3. If you go to c3, they can make you go to d3. And now you need to find this move. So this is kind of a puzzle in its own right. Like, let's say you were given this position. White just played pawn takes c5. What do? You're down a lot of material. Well, you're down a pawn, but these pawns are really good. If white gets one free move, they win. Like, if they can play queen d3, I imagine, they're probably just completely crushing. Or maybe even rook e2. No, maybe not rook e2, but you know, something like that. I think that white is just winning in one move if you don't find this exact sequence. This one. Where you're going to deflect the king and win one of these two pieces. So, starting out here, where they just played d4 and we're a piece down and we have to decide if we take the bishop now or like one or two moves from now. That's kind of hard in my opinion. Like, I was thinking that I want to take this because for instance, they go here. Actually, here we're not taking the bishop. Maybe this is why. Maybe this is how I could understand it better. I was thinking I want to destroy their connected pass pawns. and then I'm going to take the bishop anyway. But after queen takes, my queen is hanging. So I might lose the chance to take this bishop. This actually makes sense to me. But I also didn't think I had to take. Like, I could also throw this in. Okay, yeah, so even if I don't take on d4 immediately, I'm still fine, right? Like, they go here, I take. Okay, but in all fairness, I don't really want to play this position so much. This should still be winning for white. Yeah, I think I just needed to see everything better here. A little complicated. It's definitely more of a like tactics puzzle if we start with like this position. But yeah, it's probably fair. I just have to see, like, am I losing the chance to take this bishop if I play rook a2? And the answer is kind of yes. So I think I get it. I can take their queen with knight f4. And I could take this rook and be a piece up. But running into queen c8. Queen takes e5, queen c8, queen e8, rook g8, king takes g8, queen takes e8 is winning for white. Queen takes e5, queen c8, king e7 on the other hand. They probably play like queen b7. King f6, queen takes a6, queen e6, something like that. There's too many checks here. I think they probably have a lot of counterplay. Like maybe even a draw. Like if I have to play king f8, they could play queen b7 check, queen c8 check, and go back and forth. So knight f4 looks important. Knight f4 check looks important. King h2, I imagine. Definitely not king g1. I mean, not king g1, that's illegal anyway. Maybe I should throw queen c6. But then I can't play knight f4 with check. Alright, knight f4, king h2. Could be queen f2. If they play rook g2, then we knight takes h3. Just winning a whole piece. That looks pretty convincing. Knight f4, they could play king h1. But then we have queen c6 winning the queen. And if they play king f1, it's the same deal. So I think knight f4 is winning. Yes. This move makes sense. And then queen takes e5. With the idea that after queen c8, king e7, queen b7, king f6, they don't have rook f3. And if they play queen takes a6 check, we have knight e6. I think this all makes sense. Alright, cool. Well, we're definitely not playing queen takes c3, because after queen takes c3 it's check. And we lose, so nope, not happening. But rook a1, knight takes a1, queen a2, king c1, queen takes a1 looks a lot more reasonable. In fact, I don't think there's anything to look at. It's just mate. Easy mate. Excuse me. So they can't take our queen. That's nice. We could play queen takes h6, queen takes h6, rook takes h6, king g8, and something. But I think the something I would want to play is f7. So I should probably start bishop g6, pawn g6, queen h6, queen h6, rook h6, king g8, f7 check, king f8, rook takes h8. And then they have king takes f7, but we already won our material. Alright, just to double check, I'm pretty confident that this is just the best move. f7. They take it, we take the rook. No questions asked. Yeah. Probably gonna have to stop soon because I'm losing my voice again. I really want to play like bishop f3. Hard to say how to make them move it though, because like even if I play something like queen e5, first of all they can take the queen, but second of all, even if they just protected the bishop, I'm not really threatening anything. Could also be good to get our queen on f1. Maybe like queen takes d8, c7. No, c7 doesn't even make sense. For them it makes sense. Actually, maybe that's the thing. Queen takes d8, c7. If I play queen takes c7, there's queen e8 mate. But we could play queen e7. And if they play c8, we just take it with the bishop. But I feel like this is not a puzzle for you to just figure out like what failing attempt white has. Queen takes d8, they probably have something else. Like, I don't know, queen b7 or something. But even then, like, just bishop c8 shouldn't be that bad. Well, I'm not sure what makes any sense except for taking the bishop, frankly. Like, queen's hanging, they're playing c7 quickly, threatening mate. We don't really have anything here. A move like f5 or some bishop f5 doesn't make any sense. So I'm just going to take this bishop and see. Alright, now here I could play queen e7. Oh, but queen e7 runs into queen b8 maybe. So probably it should be like queen c8. Maybe I should have thought of that. Even queen e7, queen b8 check, queen f8, is it that bad? I guess we have to sack a piece back. Because they play queen takes f8, king takes f8, and then bishop b7. Making a queen. Queen c8, queen b8, on the other hand, we don't have to move quite yet. We could get our bishop on c8 and blockade everything. And if they play a move like queen d5 to try to play queen d8, we could play bishop f6. They don't have any deflections because bishop b7 is met by queen takes b7 check a lot of the time. Yeah, I guess it's just queen c8, just defending. Yeah, that was it. Cool. Alright, maybe we'll do a couple more. And sometimes it's hard to imagine these coming from actual games. This could be something where we get a tempo on this bishop on b3. Like queen b6 and then something. I would think that it could also be a queen takes rook takes b3 thing, but I think after queen takes b3, they don't really have like new problems, so probably that's not it. The queen's not especially lacking squares either, except in the capacity that it must defend this bishop, but that'll probably change really quickly. For instance, like queen b8, I don't know, even if they play something lame like bishop d1, I don't see why that's such a big deal. But the only things that are really vulnerable are their queen and their bishop. I don't think their king's even really vulnerable. The rook on e5, kind of, but really barely. Maybe that's just enough. Like knight d7, move your rook, and knight c5, double attack. That looks pretty good. And they just move the bishop. Okay. Computer solutions. Okay, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up right here, just because I'm losing my voice as usual. Hopefully, when I stop having that problem so much, I will be able to film new content and share it with you guys. So until then, I have a few things coming down the pipe or the pike, depending on how you see that phrase. On YouTube. So if you guys want to check out that content, publish something today. I think I'm going to publish something tomorrow. I'd have to check my schedule. You guys will see. Yeah, feel free to get in touch on Discord. You guys can always use the Discord command on Twitch to get that. And on YouTube, you just leave a comment and I'll send you a link. So look forward to seeing you guys next time. And thank you for tuning in. Take care, everyone.